Oh, Pokémon. They really do get everywhere, don't they? We've seen them in our curries, on our passenger jets, and on our winter garments. Oh, that's haunting. Like dealing with a sadist who opens a pack of glitter, these critters are all over the place. Tangela, get out of the spaghetti, I know you're in there! And now we've got Ryan Reynolds bringing his trademark Deadpool mannerisms to the famous yellow rodent himself in one of the biggest "is this actually a real thing" moments in the history of movie announcements. We shouldn't have been surprised, however, seeing as Pokémon is the highest grossing entertainment media franchise of all time, having made a whopping $90 billion in lifetime revenue. The games haven't done too bad either. At the time of writing, there are 122 official Pokémon titles, and it's the second best-selling game franchise ever at 309 million units. From spawning old playground arguments to blockbuster movies, anime series, and keeping entire Etsy pages in business, the series has come a long way since the coffee-deprived old man refused to get out of the road back in 1996. And while the core series follows a tried and tested formula beloved by millions, the Pokémon franchise hasn't been afraid to dabble in new spin-offs that go a little off-piste, so let's have a look at some of them, shall we? I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are 10 Pokémon games that broke the traditional mold. Number 10. Hey You, Pikachu. There's a reason our favourite electric mouse is yellow, and it's not jaundice. It's because he's a literal gold mine. People love Pikachu, it's a fact. So when Nintendo released Hey You, Pikachu! for the N64, complete with its own custom microphone peripheral to help you speak to the Chew, it became an instant critical and commercial success, right? Well, let's just say it went to stay with the Virtual Boy in Nintendo's failed ideas vault. The premise was novel, putting you in charge of looking after your own Pikachu using the aforementioned voice recognition unit to talk to your new pal, and well, that's pretty much the gist of it. More of a pet simulator akin to Nintendogs, Hey You, Pikachu! Didn't feature a lot of game, with a few basic events revolving around you saying a handful of key phrases and Pikachu ignoring you because he's a racist that doesn't recognize regional accents. Now, I don't have that problem. Obviously, I speak the Queen's English, but I am thankful at how far voice recognition has come. It's truly touching to see iPhones understand Peter.
Here, Siri, there's Ruddy's whippets taking me cap down yon ginnel.
Okay, I found this on the web for that as whippets gone taken yon already down kennel.
Number 9. Pokémon Rumble. How do you counter the argument that Pokémon is just a kid's game? Easy! Make a Diablo-style dungeon crawler with Pokémon because Diablo's dark and edgy and has the devil in it. Yeah. Does it have the same in-depth character customization, range of movesets, or compelling world building and level design? No, but who cares, cause you get to play as a Pokemans, right? The Rumble series, starting with the 2009 WiiWare title, was quite a departure from the classic gameplay, and to its credit, the real-time combat has a certain appeal. The idea of wiping out a nest of ratatatatatatatatars is hard to resist, enacting revenge for all the times they've pestered you in red and blue. It's just a shame it all gets a bit samey. But aside from the sadly repetitive gameplay and lackluster visuals, there are still so many questions that arise when pondering this bizarre universe of wind-up toys who is still filled with the same insatiable bloodlust for battle. Who made them? Is this all a sick experiment by Professor Oak? And why is Machamp like this? Who hurt you, Machamp? Who did this to you? Number 8. Pokemon Go. If you ever wanted to distill the essence of pure nostalgia, bottle it, and sell it on the black market for millions, then talk to the people behind Pokemon Go. Those wily folks at Niantic not only managed to create a mobile game that had genuinely unique gameplay, utilizing augmented reality features, but they did it while convincing millions of old-school gamers to step outside, go for walks, and enjoy the views! Mostly through the filter of a phone screen, mind, but small victories. There was a certain camaraderie between strangers in the summer of 2016, drawing communities together through a mutual love of Pokemon, and then Brexit happened. You'd be surprised to discover people you walk past every day excitedly chasing the same oddish as you, and see crowds of all ages hanging around notable locations for the Pokestops. Pokemon Go was a unique revival of a world-renowned IP, and while not without its flaws, with the craze dying down substantially after a few months, they're still adding features like trading, PvP trainer battles, legendary Pokemon, and integration with Switch titles Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu. And until they crack on with an official VR Pokemon title, this is as real as it gets. Number 7. Detective Pikachu. The game. that is. The inspiration behind the upcoming Ryan Reynolds Pokémon love child and the catalyst for making this list in the first place, Detective Pikachu, the official game of the movie that actually came out before the movie, trademark, is another radical departure from the typical creature imprisonment formula. This is what happens when you put Pikachu on a strict diet of black coffee, 40 smokes a day, and reruns of Columbo. And just one more thing, Chansey. We found the eggshells at the murder scene in a single fried egg. You're going away for life, you monster. Don't know what that was. Much like the movie, the premise follows a Pikachu that prefers intelligence and street smarts over strength and speed, hence the nifty hat, and partners up with a human who understands what he's saying. Its story-driven, Telltale Games-esque tone covers surprisingly adult crime drama themes, an early kidnapping case, kleptomania, and uncontrolled rampages, all caused by the outbreak of a street drug called R. The numerous Pika prompts add some charm and character to the prickly-voiced P, playing with old detective tropes in new Pokemon-themed ways. Number 6. Pokemon Trading Card Game. 20 years on, and we still feel the need to look over our shoulder and talk in hushed whispers about the dreaded plague that swept school playgrounds: Pokemon cards. This dangerous epidemic led to outright bans in many schools, including mine, causing fights, arguments, and creating an underground black market for sweet shinies. Oi mate, looking for a rare Gyarados? How about a first edition Porygon, Columbia's finest? I think that voice was a little bit better than the last one. When the video game adaptation launched on the Game Boy Color in the year 2000, with the aim of cracking down on this shady black market, it arguably enabled those addictions further, with players building their decks and battling in a much more subtle way. Releasing amongst the first big wave of Pokemania, the trading card game was a welcome salve to those who had played the core red and blue games to death and provided a new challenge that we couldn't just cheese our way through with rare candy glitches. Not to mention, with a lower cost and lower risk of getting mugged at lunch break. I didn't get mugged, but James Farnes did persuade me to trade my shiny Blastoise for a shiny Machamp, and as we all know, shiny Machamps are common as dirt! Number 5. Pokemon Stadium. The original Pokemon Stadium on N64 still carries bittersweet childhood memories. On the one hand, our naive young minds, expecting a fully 3D experience with all the trimmings, were severely disappointed that this flashy battle simulator had none of the free roam elements of the Game Boy titles, but we quickly forgave them when we stumbled upon the mini-games. What's not to love about hoovering up brightly coloured sushi with Lickitung, chucking Ekans hoops onto Diglets, or watching running on a treadmill like one of Professor Oak's horrific lab experiments? Seriously, why hasn't anyone called the RSPCA yet? The core game wasn't too bad either once we got over the stubbornness of "it's not a real Pokemon game." Battles were a visual treat compared to the sprites of the handheld titles, and were surprisingly tricky considering most of the tournament battles put you at equal levels with the opposition. And the cherry on the cake was the Doduo and Dodrio modes, letting you play the original games on double or triple speed. Perfect for power leveling through bug extermination. Number 4. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. "Which Pokemon are you?" shouts Mystery Dungeon in true BuzzFeed fashion, demanding you answer a series of life-probing questions almost immediately after starting the game. Unlike most of these quizzes, however, they're not just a shortcut to getting blocked on social media channels after the 50th post in a row. We get it, Susan! You're a Jigglypuff in House Hufflepuff. Well done! I hope your cat gets better soon. After a full medical and psych evaluation, you actually get transformed into your assigned Pokemon and pick a Pokebuddy, who proceeds to call you weird and generally body shame your new non-human form. Mystery Dungeon puts a roguelike dungeon crawler twist on traditional Pokemon games, with randomly generated levels and enemy pocket mans for you and your partner to fight through, with a fairly fast-paced, turn-based combat system. This spin-off series has seen the most entries over the years, and with good reason. Gameplay that's easy to pick up and get hooked on, and especially for later entries like the Explorers Collection, a deep story that hits on some surprisingly mature themes. Number 3. Pokemon Conquest. Before Deadpool star Ryan Reynolds casting in Detective Pikachu, you could have argued that Pokemon Conquest was the most ambitious crossover for the franchise. This often overlooked spin-off for the Nintendo DS paired up the notorious creature catcher with obscure strategy RPG series Nobunaga's Ambition to create a uniquely grid-based combat system that's... okay, we'll say it. It's Fire Emblem. It's basically Fire Emblem, but with Pokemon. I know it's technically another series, but loads of people are familiar with Fire Emblem's turn-based tactical goodness, so it's Fire Emblem. Alright. On the surface, it's a clash of concepts that shouldn't really work. Set in feudal Japan with warlords vying for control over the war-torn region, the Nobunaga world doesn't exactly sound like the safest place for Eevee and friends, but never, ever underestimate Eevee's ruthlessly ambitious colonialism. By matching each character with a Pokemon that can tackle the terrain in unique ways, fire types walking over lava, poison types through toxic areas, etc., it opens up a wide range of smart, satisfying plays. In a world where Goofy and Donald Duck can rub shoulders with Sephiroth, who's to say we can't enjoy an army of Pokemon samurai warriors? Huh? Is it you? Pipe down. Number 2. POKKEN Tournament. Do you remember when we said Pokemon Conquest was the most ambitious crossover for Pokemon titles? Well, scrap that, because whoever smoked enough of that good herb to dream up a combination of Pokemon and Tekken should be given a medal, keys to the city, and should probably check into rehab as they might have overdone it. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, everything in moderation. Blaze it. Launching on the Wii U in 2016 with an enhanced Redux version ported to the Switch the following year, this is the ultimate fighting game. With plenty of visually spectacular moves appropriately themed to each of the 23 playable characters, it shook up the regular formula for long-term Pokemon and Tekken fans alike. Blast enemies into orbit with Blastoise's water cannon, lay down a space beatdown while you're up there with Gardevoir, mentally scar the other fighters with Darkrai's Nightmare Fuel, or summon an ethereal hand to wield Aegis/'s sword and slice straight through your opponent. Okay, that one seems a little bit too brutal even for Tekken standards. Like the wildly popular Smash Brothers, this is the perfect answer to the eternal question, what if Pokemon fights were actual fights? Number 1. Pokemon Snap. Okay, so we're not saying that Pokemon Snap was single-handedly responsible for 80% of our age group taking up photography courses later in life, but the Cult Paparazzi Simulator certainly opened our eyes to a more artistic side of the Pokemon universe. In typical Nintendo fashion, the game took a seemingly commonplace concept like wildlife photography and slapped a whole bunch of Pokemon on it, forming a masterful spin-off game that had no right to be as entertaining as it was. The game took us on a safari park tour of these magnificent creatures' natural habitats, armed with only a camera, a bag of apples, and some worryingly named pester balls to capture the best photos. All this with cunning item use, manipulation of level features, and an almost pervert level of persistence to snap the most salacious pic. Yeah, that's it. Use flash, you dirty magnets. The thrill of capturing a menage a trois in action, filming a muck completely covered in filth, or catching Pikachu in the act of riding Articuno almost makes you look twice at this seemingly innocuous game. I mean, you are literally throwing things at animals for them to give you a better shot. Doesn't sound exactly like Attenborough, does it? Who could possibly be encouraging this blatant animal abuse? For God's sake, Oak, how has your license not been revoked? Pokemon Snap had its flaws, being quite literally an on-rails experience with limited flexibility and fewer than half of the total 151 available Pokemon on show. But perhaps the biggest crime is that it's so damn short! Still, with all the free cam photo modes included in games these days, we're still keeping our long lens ready for a sequel. And there we are, a delightful look back at some of Pokemon's more unusual adventures. If we've missed out your favourites, and we know there are a few, we just couldn't quite fit them in here, then shout at us in the comments below. Just do it nicely, please. You can follow myself and TripleJump on Twitter here, and while you're at it, why not support the things you enjoy by having a look at our Patreon? Finally, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. I'm Ben from TripleJump, and thanks for watching.